Vice President participates in the plenary session of the Global Government Excellence on Foreigners Employed in Resorts.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Good evening and welcome to PSM News in English. I'm your host Ahmad Imad and I'll continue with the details for this evening's stories. President Dr. Mohammad Muiz vows to restore Ras Fanu and Sultan Park to their former glory. The President, in a post on social media platforms, expressed disappointment and sadness over the current dire state of both Ras Fanu and Sultan Park. He noted that both Ras Fanu and Sultan Park had been a source of joy for the people of the capital Male, vowing to restore them to their former glory and making them available to the people. Ras Fanu Beach was artificially reclaimed from the west of the capital Male in 2016 when President Dr. Muiz was then Housing Minister. The area was developed with barbecue areas, huts and children play areas to offer families a much-needed escape from the congested capital. As part of that initiative, Sultan Park was also redeveloped in 2017 with many attractions and facilities for children and families. However, throughout these years, lack of maintenance and neglect have deteriorated them to almost beyond use. Vice President Hussein Mohammad Latif participates in the plenary session of the Global Government Excellence Award at the World Government Summit in Dubai, United Arab Emirates, where global leaders highlighted public sector innovation and governance excellence. During the session, Muhammad Yunus, Chief Advisor of Bangladesh, addressed the audience. He discussed various challenges involving global political affairs, the need to revive the economy of Bangladesh, and the adjustments required for rebuilding the economy in Bangladesh under the new government. At the event, an award was presented by Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, Vice President, Prime Minister and Minister for Defense of the United Arab Emirates, ruler of Dubai, for the best minister in the world. The award recognizes the exceptional efforts of government ministers who demonstrate excellence in the public sector, successfully implement reforms, and inspire government leaders and service providers. In 2015, the global movement began to recognize the unsung heroes of the world teachers. The Global Teacher Prize 2025. The Ministry of Homeland Security and Technology commences the collection of biometric data on foreigners employed in resorts. The ministry will be collecting information on foreigners working in 13 resorts as part of Operation Kurangi. The ministry said the work will run from February 13th to 16th, during which 56 employees of the ministry will be engaged in the data collection process. Operation Kurangi was launched on May 2nd last year as part of the first phase of the efforts to find a permanent solution to the issue of illegal migrants in the Maldives. As part of the initiative, biometric data of 52,495 foreigners has been collected so far, including data on 30,426 foreigners living in the Male area and 22,069 foreigners in other parts of the country. The operation collects fingerprints of foreigners working in the Maldives and ensure that they are residing and working in the Maldives while complying with the laws and regulations of the country. The information required for this operation is collected by setting up collection of biometrics of foreigners in council offices. The Minister of Internal Security and Technology, Ali Hussain, has earlier said that a centralized register of foreign workers will be compiled using the collected data. Maldives Transport and Contracting Company, MTCC, posts 136.2 million in revenue last year. However, according to MTCC's financial figures last year, this revenue figure is 32.1% down from the previous year's 207.5 billion.
MTCC's operating income fell 37.2% compared to 2023, according to the fourth quarter of financial report. The company had operating revenue of $28.1 million in 2023, but suffered a significant decline to $13.7 million last year. The decline in revenue was reflected in MTCC's profit, with the company posting profit before tax of $6.4 million for 2025. This is 41% lower than a previous year. MTCC had posted a net profit of $5.5 million last year. The figure shows that MTCC posted a net profit of $27.1 million in the fourth quarter of last year. This is a decrease of 28.8% compared to Rupiah 38.1 million in the third quarter of the last year. MTCC posted an operating profit of $11.5 million in the fourth quarter. The company had operating revenue of $823,000 in the third quarter. MTCC posted a net profit of $9.8 million in the last quarter of 2024. The state-owned MTCC is implementing multiple infrastructure projects across the country. According to the company, MTCC carried out 189 projects in the last quarter of last year. 9 projects were completed and 3 new projects were started during the quarter. The highlights of MTCC's achievement in 2024 includes Mafaro Airport expansion, second phase, and a channel development in the harbour of Kumundu, Hadal Atoll.
The operator of the Maldives national airline, Island Aviation Services Limited (IASL), successfully obtains the European Union Aviation Safety Agency EASA Part 145 approval certificate. This certification authorizes IASL to provide aircraft maintenance, repair and overhaul servicing for European registered aircraft.
Part 145 is an international framework for aircraft maintenance that is used by global aviation authorities. The certificate is issued by aviation authorities across the world. The most widely accepted frameworks are issued by the Federal Aviation Administration (FAA) and EASA. Island aviation engineers have obtained certification from 12 international authorities, including the UAE. Following the obtaining of the EASA Part 145 approval certificate, the Ministry of Transport and Civil Aviation Muhammad Amin congratulated Maldivian on the achievement. He said the achievement was expedited under President Dr. Muizzu's national airline reform and modernization agenda and helped strengthen the aviation sector. With the obtainment of the certificate, IASL can now service aircraft registered in Europe. While a large number of aircraft already receive services from the Maldives at the main international airport, Belana International Airport, the EASA Part 145 certification will allow services to be offered to the aircraft from additional airlines. IASL's Director of Engineering Operations, Muhammad Hassan, said the certification will enable IASL to offer services to additional airlines, as well as resolve encountered in operations in a timely manner. It also presents valuable opportunities for those working in the national airline and those who wish to succeed in the field. IASL employees are already capable of providing maintenance services to most aircrafts that arrive in the Maldives. This includes large wide-body aircraft such as Airbus, Boeing 777 and 787. Additionally, the Tecnam aircraft used at Maldivian Aviation Academy, Dash 8 and ATR aircraft used to domestic operations are also included. IASL already provides services to over 30 airlines. While IASL becomes the first airline in the Maldives to obtain the EASA certification, the company believes this is a major step forward for the Maldives aviation history as well as the services provided by the company.
India's benchmark indices extend losses as investors fret over the implications of US President Donald Trump's plans to impose reciprocal tariffs, which analysts said could hurt the country the most among its Asian peers.
President Trump is planning to slap reciprocal tariffs on every country taxing US imports. The imposition of these duties, however, is likely to be delayed, helping global stocks stage a relief rally. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi met Trump on February 13 and offered to talk about erasing tariffs, buy more US oil and gas, combat aircraft and concessions.
New U.S. president has announced a lot of measures where he has imposed tariff on certain countries, and then he has imposed a blanket kind of tariff on import of steel and aluminum. So all these things have made Indian investor nervous, and not only Indian but world over the investors are nervous. They are not sure which way the global economy will move with these kind of new tariff, and what kind of disruption it can bring to these overall global supply chains.
But that did little to calm markets back home on worries that India could be hit hard by reciprocal tariffs. The Nifty 50 and the BSE Sensex lost about 0.8% each as of 2:25 p.m. IST. Analysis said the potential consequences of U.S. tariffs on the Indian rupee and U.S. interest rates could trigger further foreign outflows, hurting domestic equities.
Taiwan President Lai Ching-te pledges to talk with the United States about President Donald Trump's concerns over the chip industry and to invest more in and buy more from the country, while also spending more on defense.
Trump spoke critically about Taiwan on Thursday, February 13th, saying he aimed to restore U.S. manufacturing of semiconductor chips and repeating his previous claims about Taiwan having taken away the industry and that he wanted it back in the United States. Speaking to reporters after holding a meeting of the National Security Council at the presidential office, Lai said the global semiconductor supply chain is an ecosystem in which division of work among various countries is important. Taiwan is home to the world's largest contract chip maker, TSMC, a major supplier to companies including Apple and Nvidia, and crucial part in the developing AI industry. Trump has also previously criticized Taiwan, which faces a growing military threat from China, whose government claims the island as its own territory, for not spending enough on its defense, a criticism he has made of many U.S. allies. Lai said on Friday that his government is working to propose a special budget this year to boost defense spending from 2.5% of its GDP to 3%.
The Kremlin says it has nothing new to say about Ukraine peace efforts when asked about U.S. President Donald Trump's statement that Russia would take part in talks in Munich.
Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said that after Trump's call with President Vladimir Putin this week, it would take some days to establish diplomatic contacts, and reporters would be told when that happened. Commenting on Trump's remark that he wanted Russia to return to the G7 and said it had been a mistake for Moscow to be expelled, the Kremlin said that the group of 7 nations no longer united the world's fastest growing economies and had consequently lost much of its relevance. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said that the centers of growth had shifted and that Russia was now more interested in working with the group of 20, which he said better reflected what he called the economic locomotive of global growth. Peskov also said that Russia expects to receive clarification of remarks by U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance that Washington has economic and military tools of leverage that it could use against Russia if Moscow does not agree to a peace deal, guaranteeing Ukraine's long-term independence. Vance made the comments in an interview with the Wall Street Journal.
U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says European countries need to invest now in defense because it is not possible to assume that the U.S. presence on the continent will last forever. He made the remarks during a visit to Warsaw, Poland.
He added that Washington regards Poland as a model ally due to its commitment to spending heavily on defense.
It is a privilege to be here, and I do want to emphasize that it's quite intentional that our first European bilateral is right here in Poland. The symbolism is not lost. In fact, it is intentional. We see Poland as the model ally on the continent, willing to invest not just in their defense, but in our shared defense and the defense of the continent.
In his overseas debut after taking charge of the Pentagon on January 24th, Hegseth has kindled an outcry in Europe after announcing on Wednesday that a return to Ukraine's pre-2014 borders was unrealistic and that the Trump administration does not see NATO membership for Kyiv as part of a solution to the war triggered by Russia's 2022 invasion. Hegsed's critics say the remarks amounted to the United States giving up its leverage in negotiations with Russia before they even started, in what they described as a major victory for the Russian President Vladimir Putin.
NATO's response to this situation is to truly increase capabilities, truly increase inputs and spending, to think more like Poland, to think more like the Baltics, who are closer to the threat and recognize the reality of the threat. Then I don't think Vladimir Putin will be emboldened by this outcome. It'll be a recognition that the collective ability of the West to deter him was something that actually happened. Is there trust there? No. I mean, you don't have to operate under a position of trust in order to negotiate a deal. But again, I'm the Secretary of Defense. It's not my job to read the mind of Vladimir Putin. President Trump will be the one at the table with Zelensky and Putin. You don't have to trust somebody in order to negotiate with them. But as Ronald Reagan said, if you don't trust, you need to verify. And so there will be a follow-up in ensuring that whatever peace is negotiated is a lasting and enduring peace.
Hegseth on Friday again defended his remarks as acknowledgement of battlefield realities and said it was unlikely that Ukraine would return to its 2014 borders or become a member of NATO.
A brace from John Duran helps Al Nassr hold on for a 3-2 win at Al Ahly after playing almost an entire half with a player short during their Saudi Pro League encounter in Jeddah. Canadian flag maker Flags Unlimited sales double from the previous year as tensions with the neighboring United States fuel a wave of national patriotism.
The increase in sales comes ahead of Canada's National Flag Day on February 15, marking the 60th anniversary of the red and white maple leaf banner that debuted in Ottawa. Matt Skip, co-owner of Flags Unlimited in Barrie, north of Toronto, attributes the spike in demand to threats from former U.S. President Donald Trump over Canadian sovereignty.
Traditionally, is probably the lowest part of our season. Everybody's hibernating, dark days of winter. You don't think of flying a flag on a pole outside. Excepting there's a few obvious things that are really impacting that seasonal trend this year would be politics, our friends south of the border. Probably people get mad at me for saying friend, but obviously the Trump tactics and threat to our sovereignty is spiking flag sales in what traditionally would be a weak period. Our volumes are double what they would normally be at this time of year, and we think that this is going to be a huge year for flag sales in Canada.
Flags Unlimited, which produces more than 500,000 flags annually, is considering additional shifts and sourcing extra materials to meet the heightened demand, Skip said.
Year over year, we know, because we ship early to our large mass merchandise clients, their orders are up significantly. We'll know more about the year in the next month or so, but I hesitate to put a number around it, but I would think sales are going to be up 30%, probably more. This is the first time, I've really ever concerned about actually running out of product, and that's so we're as a management team, we're talking about extra shifts, extra supplies to try to keep on top of demand that we anticipate coming.
Canadians cancelled trips south of the border, boycotted U.S. alcohol and other products, and even booed at sporting events after Trump announced 25% tariffs on most of Canada's goods on February 3rd, though he has since delayed the tariffs. Canadian politicians have called on citizens to display the national flag this weekend to demonstrate unity and national pride.
And that wraps up the news for this evening. Thank you for tuning into PSM News. We hope you have a pleasant evening.